Okay, so today our topic is constructor. This is our chapter 5. Okay, now let's see what is constructor. In Java, constructor is a block of code similar to the method. So we can say that constructor is a special type of method or function. As we saw in our previous lecture called user defined method. So constructor is also a special type of method. So first thing is it is block of code similar to the method. It is called when instance of a class is created. Instance of a class is created, that means when we create our object in our program, then the constructor is created. Sorry, not created, is called, it is called. At the time of calling constructor, memory for the object is allocated in the memory. Okay, it is a special type of method which is used to initialize the object. That means, okay, after reading the whole thing, I am explaining. Every time an object is created using the new keyword, at least one constructor is called. It calls a default constructor if there is no constructor available in the class. So here is another term called default constructor. If we create no constructor in our program, then the default constructor is called. In such case, Java compiler provides a default constructor by default. The- okay, that means when we have no um, constructor in our class, so in that case Java compiler provides their own default constructor. There are two types of constructor in Java: no argument constructor and parameterized constructor. There is two types of constructors. It is called constructor because it constructs the values at the time of the object creation. It is not necessary to write constructor for a class. It is not because Java compiler creates a default constructor if your class does not have any. Okay. Now I am changing my screen. Okay. So we already write our code. Uh, let's say we have to create a class called a sum. So for this we write increase the font size of class sum. Okay. Inside this we create our methods like let's say public what um, public class sum, and inside this we write our function called public int sum. Inside these two parameters or arguments, int a comma int b, and the code will be return a plus b. So this is our function. Okay. Now, what is constructor? Constructor uh, is a special type of function or method. Like the sum is a method in our class sum, but observe that the spelling in the spelling of sum, our s is capital in capital letter, but our function is small letter, so it cannot be a constructor. To create a constructor, we have to follow some rules. At first, check what rules are these. Number one is constructor name must be the same as its class name. So in our case, the name is same but the spelling is different. Why different? Here the S is in small letter and in our class name S is in capital letter. Okay, number two, a constructor must have no explicit return type. Another thing is in our method we have return type. As we already know that what is the I am saying what is the basic syntax for creating a method. It was like that. At first, access specifier like public. These are our access modifiers. Okay, so it can be public, private, or protected. After that, we can use the non-access modifiers like static. After that, we use our return type. This place is for our return type. In our case, int is our return type. Now, what the rule is saying? The rule is saying that a constructor must have no explicit return type. So, at the time of creating constructor, we should not use any return type. Okay, so this was the second rule. And the third rule is a Java constructor cannot be abstract, static, final, and synchronized. That means these are the non-access modifiers: abstract, static, final, and synchronized. These non-static specifiers can also be used. Okay, that means we cannot use that non-access modifiers. Now the thing is, let me erase it. To create a method, we have to follow this format. At first, access modifiers. After that, we have to use our non-access modifiers. Non-access modifiers. After that, we have to use return type, then function name, and finally we have to provide our argument list. So this is our uh, syntax to create a method. But in case of constructor, we have to reduce some things from here. These are like we cannot use non-access modifiers, so this is removed for constructor. We cannot use any return type, so this also removed. Now what is the what will be the syntax for our constructor? It will be access modifier. What? Yes. But there is one rule also. I am saying access modifier. Then we have to use constructor name. And what will be the constructor name? It will be same as the class name. So I am writing here class name. After that, we can provide our argument list. And the rest things are similar as of class. Sorry, method. So the line here, the sentence was, it is a special type of methods. That means it is a method. But the difference is we cannot use any access modifier, we cannot use any return type, sorry, non-access modifier, cannot use return type, and the constructor name should be same as the class name. And a constructor can be two types, non-parameterized constructor. In that case, this bracket will be empty. And we can also have parameterized constructor. For that case, we have to provide our argument in inside the parenthesis. So, okay, now there are two types of Java constructor: default constructor or no argument constructor. Okay, so here is a term called default constructor. Default constructor is a constructor like in this code, I don't use any constructor. Okay, but Java compiler creates its own constructor. How it can be created? There, the access modifier is optional. We can skip this part. So the default constructor can be seems like that the constructor names should be similar to the class name. So it will be some, and for default constructor there will be no argument, and inside this whole thing is blank. This is our default constructor that is created by Java compiler, and it cannot be seen in our code. It will be totally hidden. But in case when we are creating our own constructor, that will be visible to us. So go now understand the default constructor and parameterized constructor deeply. So at first, Java default constructor. A constructor is called default constructor when it does not have any parameter. Does not have any parameter, or we can say does not have any arguments. And the syntax is simply the class name, parenthesis open and close, and this parenthesis should not contain any argument or parameter, and in the body of the constructor is empty for default constructor. Like I already give the example here. This is our default constructor. Here another example is also uh, Java program to create and call default constructor class bike. Now how the constructor is called? Now, when we create our object, like in this case our class name is sum. Let's say object name is obj equals to new sum and bracket open close. Okay, So this part, this part is called our constructor. This is the section where we call our constructor. Constructor. Okay, in the first class, I told you that this is a special thing when we create our object. So this special thing is constructor. So we can call of our method anywhere in our program, but we the constructor should be called at the time of creation of object only. This is the one line where we can call our constructor. But for function or argument method, we can call our method anywhere in our program. Okay, now see the example. So this is our default constructor bike 1, as it is similar to our class name bike 1. The parenthesis is blank, and this is the body. Here we are creating our default constructor, so we can write anything in our uh, class inside the constructor body. Okay, it will be clear when we uh, perform our coding part. Okay, next, what is the purpose of default constructor? The default constructor is used to provide the default values to the object like 0, null, etc. depending on the type. Now there is another thing, that what is the functionality of default constructor. Now let's see what is the uh, in our few, I think 2 class ago, there was a coding like uh, that was factorial. Okay, we have done the factorial. Okay, so for factorial, we saw that there was a variable called f, and we put the value, initialize it with 1 for multiplication. So this kind of thing we can do using the constructor. So this is the one functionality of default constructor. That is, this is the default value for f, that means starting value. So to provide the any variable, the starting value or initial value, we can use our default constructor. Example of default constructor that display the default values. Display static, and there is the class name is called student3, but there is no. Okay, I will give my own example of. Now move on to the parameterized constructor. Parameterized constructor are simply the, it is a similar type function. So for this, in our example like sum, how to create a parameterized constructor? Simply write the class name, and inside the parenthesis we can have our arguments like int a, int b. It is a similar type of function, but it follows some rules, that is no access, non-access modifiers can be used, and no return type can be used. So a constructor which has a specific number of parameters is called a parameterized constructor. Why use the parameterized constructor? The parameterized constructor is used to provide different values to distinct object. However, you can provide the same values also. Example, see here is a parameterized constructor. The name is similar to the class name student4, and it provides some parameter or arguments inside the parenthesis. This is called parameterized constructor. And how to call our parameterized constructor? Let's say this is our parameterized constructor. It will set our value, let's say x equals to a and y equals to b. So this is our parameterized constructor. So when we use parameterized constructor at the time of function object creation, like sum, obj, obj is the object name, new, sum. Inside the parenthesis, for in case of default constructor, the parenthesis is left blank. Here it is blank. But for to create the or to call the parameterized constructor, we should provide a value inside a parenthesis. Let's say 5 and 4. This is our parameterized constructor. So here you can see there is two arguments called int I and I for id and string n for name. And here at the time of creating object, we pass the id and name to the constructor. So this is how we can create our object using parameterized constructor. Now constructor overloading, uh, it is also similar type of function overloading or method overloading. There will be more than one constructor, but their signature or their definition will be not definition, the prototype will be different, but name will be same. uh, can you remember the method overloading? The concept, repeat again. Method overloading. Yes, this is also known polymorphism. So the concept was clear. What was the use of method overloading? It was clear na in our previous class how to use method overloading. Okay, so the constructor overloading is also similar to the method overloading. Then another thing is copy constructor. There is no copy constructor. Okay, there is no copy constructor. This is another thing not required. Can you check your book if there is a concept called copy constructor? Okay, so it is not required for. Okay, now some things. Does constructor return any value? Yes, the constructor. Now the question is, we cannot use any return type when we create our constructor. But so how it can return something? So the constructor returns the current class instance. That means our object. Okay. Can constructor perform other tasks instead of initialization? Yes, like object creation, starting a thread, calling a method. These are the functions for of constructors. You can perform any operations in the constructor as you perform in the method. Okay. Is there constructor class in Java? Yes. What is the purpose of constructor class? So these are different things. Now main thing is difference between the constructor and method in Java. There are many differences between constructors and methods. They are given below. Now Java constructor. A constructor is used to initialize the state of an object, and a method is used to expose the behavior of the object. So here is the difference. Constructor's main function is to initialize the state of an object, but for Java method, the main operation is to perform something. The constructor must not have a return type. A method must have a return type. Okay. Now the constructor is invoked implicitly. Implicitly means by default or by the Java compiler, and the method is invoked explicitly. That means we have to uh, also we can term that can termed implicitly as automatically. Let's say automatic implicit, and for explicit it is manual. So Java constructor is um, automatic or implicitly, can be invoked implicitly, and the method is invoked explicitly or manually. The Java compiler provides a default constructor. If you don't have any constructor in a class, the method is not provided by the compiler in any case. The constructor name must be the same as the class name. The method name may or may not be the same as the class name. So this was the differences. Okay, now move on to the our code. Okay, there is something. We will perform this type of codes after I am giving an example. Okay, we already have the class sum. We create another class. Okay. Sum2. Can you see the BlueJ screen? Okay. So public class sum2. This is our class name, and we are creating our function public int add. Let's say these are the thing. Okay, add, and we can use variables called int x comma y. These are the variables, and what it will return? It will return x plus y. This is our function. Now I am creating the main function public static void main. string arguments. Okay, this is our main function. Uh, Now this is our method, not constructor. Okay. Now let's see when we create our object, that is sum2 obj equals to new sum2. So as we did not create any constructor in our code, so Java compiler will create its own constructor, that is default constructor by default. And how it will seem like? It will seem like this thing is for creating comment, that is not non-executable code. And I use the forward slash star and again star and forward slash. This block is now for comment. Now for this sum2, this is the uh, default constructor created by Java, and that is internal. Default constructor created by Java. Okay, now if I let's say int s equals to obj dot add, I am calling a function, but I did not initialize x and y. Now let's see what is the result. System dot out dot println. Inside this, I am printing the value of s. Now compile it. Uh, what do you think? What will be the answer? But I did not provide any value to our variables, that is x and y. This is our variable. I did not give any value, but I am calling the add function. It will return the addition of x and y. So according to me, let's see. It may be 0. Okay, let's run it. Okay, this is 0. Now why it is 0? The Java compiler creates its own default constructor, and the operation of the constructor is make x equals to 0 and y equals to 0. This whole thing are performed internally. Okay, that is why the result becomes 0. Okay, this was totally internal process. Now we can create our own constructor. Okay, to create constructor we have to follow some rules, that is there should be class name and parentheses. Now this is our default constructor. Now inside the default constructor I am trying to print a message like system.out.println default constructor is called. That means whenever the default constructor will be called, it will display a message that default constructor is called. And as like Java compiler, I am providing s as 0 and y as 0. Okay, now let's run this code again. Compiler compile, there is no error. It void main. Okay, so see here, the default constructor is called. That means In this case, it works. When I create object, I call the default constructor. Default constructor is nothing, the constructor with no argument or no parameter. So I called here, and this portion is executed. Let's see what happened when we call the default constructor in another place. Sum2 and this. It there might be error. Yes, this shows the error that errors found in class. Okay, there is no error message, but it shows that in this line there is a error. Okay, now this is 0 and both are 0. We can provide any value here. Let's say I give x equals to 3 and y equals to 2. Now what will be the answer? 5. So see here, at the time of creating object, I did not provide any value here. It is provided by default. So that is why this is called default constructor. Okay, let's run our code. Where is the output? Okay, here is the output. So this is our output. Default constructor is called, and the result is 5. Okay. Uh, so any doubt so far? Is it clear how to create our default constructor? Okay, now move on to the parameterized constructor. Parameterized constructor is nothing but same as default constructor, but we provide our parameters. Let's say int a and int b. In this case, I make it 0 0. Now let's see, there is a class to add two numbers, and the function add will return the addition of two numbers. But what happens when we provide no values to the x and y? So the default constructor make it 0. Okay, by default it is 0. But it is not sure that I want it that it will be always 0. Sometimes we want to provide some values from our side. So we can done it by using the parameterized constructor. Here I will be provide two values in the variable a and b, and the value of a will be stored in the x and value of b will be stored in the y. So simply to check whether the parameterized constructor is called or not, I am printing the message system.out.println parameterized constructor is called. That's it. And I am assigning the value of a to x and assigning the value of b to the y. So this is our parameterized constructor. I put the comment here. Parameterized constructor. Okay. So what? Not? Okay. Ask. Uh, it was not clear. Say it again. Hmm? See here, in the case of initialization of value, what will be the left side? That is, x is in our left side, so the value will be stored in x. So in this case, in our left side is x. So the value of a will be stored in x. Okay. And the value of b will be stored in y. Now it is clear. Okay. So always remember that let's say I am writing something x equals to y. So whatever will be in the left side, it is always used to store. That means it is always a variable. And what will be in the right side, it will always be a value. It can be also variable, the value of the variable. So always it will store in the left side. That is this is our x and this is y. X and y. Let's say it is 5. And I am writing x equals to y. X equals to y. That means the value of x will be, sorry, value of y will be stored in the x. Yeah. Clear now? Okay. Now let's see here. This is our parameters constructor. This portion is clear. Okay. Now at the time of creating object, here I remain the parenthesis empty. In that case, it will call this default constructor. But if I provide some value, let's say 20, comma 10, I am providing two values. Now let's compile. There is no error. Run it. Okay, this provides 30. Now let's see the value 20 will be stored at first in A and the value of A will be stored in X. That means X becomes 20 and Y becomes 10. And the function add makes it addition of two X and Y and return us 30. That is 20 plus 10. So this is parameterized constructor. So it is it clear what is default constructor and what is parameterized constructor? Now can you uh, remember what this thing is called? The highlighted portion. We already learned about it in our last class. I have used the method name called area. Method overloading. So I was using the methods, but in here I am using the constructor. So this is called constructor overloading. Okay, now it is clear. Okay, so this is the thing of constructor, nothing else. uh, After the class, send me the PDF of next chapters, that is chapter 5, chapter 6, these portions. I hmm? Yes, it is completed, but I don't have the PDF. I have the PDF till chapter 4. Okay, let's do you have the laptop now with you? Okay, so try to solve this question. Okay, at first read the question carefully. What the first line says? Okay. No, I told the first line only. Define a class number. So there will be class called number. Class name will be number. Okay. So at first create a class. Okay.